daylight savings time. I know it's dreary. Thank you all for being here with us. We're happy to see you. Today we are looking forward to hearing from two groups of students who have had really fascinating experiences that they want to share with us. Excited to get to that. Two quick announcements. First, one from me. I just wanted to remind you all that tomorrow evening we have a visiting artist on campus from Pakistan. Her name is Aisha Durrani, and she's going to be giving a talk in the chapel. Yeah, if some of you met Aisha already, she's awesome. Cool. Yes, some of you, I encourage everybody to come to this talk. I think it's going to be really great. She's going to talk about beyond just art. She does miniature painting. She's going to talk about her work and how it intersects with questions like gender, culture. Again, she's from Pakistan, so you'll hear a whole different set of perspectives from what we usually get, perhaps. That's tomorrow, 7 o'clock in the chapel. So make sure you come out to that. Convo credit opportunity. And then we have one more announcement.
Okay, hey everybody, I'm Jaxie. I'm at DivCo. We've got some events this week. It is Women's History Month. Woo! Yeah. Thank you. Get excited. This is exciting times. Okay, so chapel. We're going to do a chapel. We're going to write letters to either your favorite female faculty or just like whoever you want. Write a letter to your pals, write a letter to staff as who we're trying to write letters to because they do a lot here on campus too, and we want to really highlight the work that they do. So come to chapel tomorrow. We also have spa night on the 12th, so come to Howie Lounge and relax and chill out and hang out with your gal pals and have a fun spa night. And we'll do some more announcements at a later date, but that's what we have going on for this week. So come on out, celebrate women, celebrate diversity. We'll see you there. Bye.
Okay, thank you. So we have a lot to hear about. I will jump right into it. We're going to start with the nursing department trip to Chiapas, Mexico last fall. So I welcome several nursing students up to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, so my name is Kate Shervany.
I'm Alexis Anderson. I'm Caitlin Boston.
I'm Charlie Carver.
I'm Becca Mullen.
And I'm Madison Roth.
And we took a trip to Mexico in October. It was kind of an extended fall break for us. We went for 6 days, and we went to several different parts of Mexico. We went with two of our awesome professors, and this is our album cover. We haven't released yet, but that'll be coming up as well. Okay, so a big part of our trip was learning about UNICACH, which is our kind of like sister school down in Chiapas. And they have a nursing school. It's actually not on the same campus as their main campus. It's actually over an hour away from the main campus. So if you think that the nursing students here are like off in their own little world, these nursing students are really like away. This is the campus. It's very colorful. It's up on a hill in a city called Carranza. And the nursing students there are in the nursing program for 4 full years. So ours is 2 years, theirs is 4 years, and their semesters are all specified what classes they're gonna take. That's similar to ours. We have certain classes that we take first semester, second semester, third semester, and then fourth. They have 8 semesters, so all of them are predetermined what classes they're gonna take each semester. This second picture is like their med room, where they have all of these medications that they learn about. We take pharmacology, they take pharmacology just like we do, and they have them alphabetized. We have a similar thing in our simulation lab. The third picture is a chart that they have up when they do their OB rotation, which is obstetrics. They learn about childbirth and like what the nurse's role is in that. And so this is similar to what we learn. They have like danger zones. So like red is like very dangerous pregnancy, like the things you need to know. Yellow is like there's some risk factors in the pregnancy. And then green is like a safe, normal, predictable pregnancy. And then the fourth picture is something they're building right now. It's a big pool at their nursing school that they are learning how to use hydrotherapy as a therapy for their patients. So it's not built yet, but it will be in I think the next couple months to a year. And you can use hydrotherapy for patients that have like mobility issues. So like a patient that had a stroke that has like one-sided paralysis, or a patient with Parkinson's, or things like that. So that's really cool. And then on a different day, we also visited their main campus. This is in Tuxtla. And I think several of our students here have visited this campus to study various things, and we have also welcomed students from this school to our campus to study here. They have plenty of different programs. A big one of theirs is their dentistry program. So the second picture you can see dental students, they have mannequins that they practice all their skills on, just like we have mannequins in our skills lab. And they get all gowned up and everything, and they practice their skills. Something really cool that they learn how to do is sterilize their own equipment. So that's that top picture. They have a sterilization room that they learn how to clean all their own tools, which we don't do here, I don't think. And then we also got to meet lots of different students from different majors. They have like nutritional science, they have a cooking school, they have engineering, they have math, they have foreign language. So it's a really awesome campus, and we got to see it and meet some of these young adults and eat lunch with them and learn about their school. So that was awesome.
Okay, so the biggest aspect that I noticed, and one we talked about, was the environmental aspects. So this one on the far left is Sump Canyon. It's a river in Tuxtla Gutierrez, and when it rains, all the trash from the city kind of flows into that river. So it makes it not usable for like sustainable water. All throughout the city, like trash, oil, and everything kind of flows into it. And it rains a lot, so it happens pretty often. There's also, I didn't post the picture, but we saw crocodiles, so that was cool. A large cause to that is that they don't have a lot of like availability for trash cans throughout the cities. So while we're walking down the roads, there's no like trash cans anywhere. It was really hard for us to find places to throw away our trash. It kind of just ends up on the streets and in the sidewalks. So that's a big reason why all that trash ends up into the river. There was also a ton of really beautiful graffiti throughout the city. Like everywhere we looked, there was graffiti. And this one kind of caught our eyes. It's an anatomical heart, and obviously we're kind of nerds for the anatomy, so that was really cool. And then up on the far right is also Sump Canyon, and that is actually the crest of Chiapas. So that has been a part of Chiapas forever. Go to the next slide. Oh. Okay, and then the top left is the dam of Sump Canyon, and the cool part about this that we were all kind of blown away is that a lot of the energy that is created from the dam, the United States actually buys. They buy a good portion of the energy that's created from that dam. And then the bottom right is the Chifflon Falls. There are 5 waterfalls, and we surprisingly made it to the top. Whole lot of stairs, whole lot of sweating. It was a lot of work. Lots of breaks, lots of water, but it was so worth it to see the view and how beautiful it was. But one thing we all did notice and talk about is that there were no signs. Like it would tell us like where we were going or how much we had left to get to the top. But other than that, there was nothing like, don't do this, no signs for safety. Whereas in the United States, it's very common where every time you go to a park or any time of attraction, there's signs everywhere telling you not to do this, not to do that. So that was kind of surprising to us. But other than that, it was really awesome. Some more graffiti, and then lots of stray dogs everywhere. We wanted to take them home with us, all of them. And then this butterfly followed us everywhere throughout the waterfalls. But other than that, that was the environmental aspects.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the displacement and exploitation. So kind of like what happened here with the indigenous people, the immigrants and settlers came and they moved the Mayan cultures out of like their homes. And so now they're in a bunch of villages up in the mountains. So this middle picture here is kind of like a cartoon painting just of like different areas that the villages are. And then this little where Dr. Tyrell and our interpreter are, that's like a Mayan little hut. I didn't really have any pictures because we didn't get to go up into the villages, but so we were actually told that the people, the Mayan cultures don't like people going into their villages, but we would have been accepted just because we weren't like the bad people that they saw there. And so it was a little cool to like hear about that, but also really sad because it's not a good thing. Like, we did it here, it shouldn't. Like, we hear a lot about it. And then this little picture here is just like a street looking up into the mountains in Chiapas. And so yeah, and then this picture that you see Kaden, that is a like spring that we went to, and it's a swimming hole, and they can drink from the water, but it's seen as holy water, so we weren't allowed to swim or drink or do anything like that. And so that was really interesting. And this is like a temple. I can't remember what saint it was for. Do you know? I didn't have that wrote down, but and then also we didn't have any pictures of this either, but they have a lot of healthcare concerns. The Mayan people, Caitlin will probably talk a little bit more about this, and Becca, but they come down to the hospitals, but they're very skeptical to do this, and they have their own midwives, and they make their own like colonostomy bags. If you don't know what that is, it's like a little connects to the like colon and for your bowels, and they make them out of like basically like little like Ziploc bags, and then their sticky stuff is made out of glycerin, which is just like sugar. And so they had this idea that we had an overabundance of like healthcare supplies that we could just bring, where as most of us know that we can't even supply that to the people who need it here. And so that was really hard for me personally to explain, like, I really want to help you, and it was really amazing and difficult, but yeah. Caitlin can talk more about that.
So this is the Mayan Museum that we went to. That top picture is us, our professors, and then our translator and the head of their public health department. The museum was in San Cristobal, which is where we stayed for 3 days, 2 days, a couple days. The middle picture is a list of herbs that they use to treat different diagnoses, like different diseases. Because they don't use pills as much as we do. They use more traditional like herbs and other medicines that are more natural. And then the last picture is different American companies that came in and they patented like their different plants that they use, and so it's illegal in Mexico for them to use. And as Americans, we were kind of annoyed that they did that because it makes us look bad, and they were there first, and that's what they use, so it's kind of frustrating to see. And then that top picture is just one of the herbs that they use, is Fresno. The middle part is what the disease treats. So this one was,
Like right there, like
yeah, hold on. Okay, the bottom part tells you which part of the plant is used. And so this one, it uses the middle of the plant. And then, like I said, the middle part tells you what it's gonna treat. So this plant treats coughs and chest pain. And then the middle picture, they actually sell the herbs at the museum. And I don't think anyone did. Maddie?
I got some tea.
Yeah. Alexis and Maddie and Dr. Tyrell bought some herbs. And Dr. Mason. And then the last picture is another plant that they used. And then we didn't have this pictured, but the museum, we watched a video of a woman giving birth. And they do it kind of differently than we do it here. They use chairs, or they just squat and have, like Charlie said, their midwife or whoever is assisting them with their birth. They use the gravity, and then the midwife kind of catches the baby. So that was different. And we had this rotation when we were doing our OB rotation, so it was really helpful with learning the differences between like their OB rotation and how we do it here.
So I have a lot of statistics, so I'm going to kind of be looking down at this paper. But this hospital that we visited, that was one of the murals inside that actually told one of the stories of the Mayan culture. This hospital in particular is the only one that is for like pre-labor for the mothers. There are 2 hospitals that take the babies after birth, but this was the only one for before birth. It also had the only hospital for a blood bank, and then the only hospital with Saints Art nurses. So those are for women after they're raped to come and get help. Their blood banks are a little bit different there. You have to give blood to get blood. So I don't know how many of you would be in trouble if you needed blood there, but we know because we do the blood drives here. 60% of the mothers that go to this hospital are actually from the Mayan villages. They give birth to about 370 babies a month at this hospital, and there are only 26 beds. So women from the villages sometimes walk 7+ hours to get there, and a lot of times that's after their water has broken, which gives you a more likely chance that you're actually going to get an infection. So sepsis, hypertension, and hemorrhage, so a lot of bleeding, are the 3 main ways that the women died down there after giving birth, which are very similar to here as well. The husband has control over the care and whether or not the woman gets an epidural. It's a very patriarchal society. I don't know how many of you guys would want to tell a woman while they're giving birth what they're allowed to do and not to do. I don't think it'll go over very well for you. But that is how it works down there. So they'll tell the women, no, you can't go. You have to take care of your other 13 children. And a lot of the times, the babies and the mothers will actually die. 50% of these babies in these communities die right after birth because of all of the infections and unhealthy ways of birthing. The mothers, like I said, don't usually stay the night because the fathers want them to come back and take care of the other children that they have. I asked what the age range of mothers were when we were there. They have had a 9-year-old mom come in, and that's not seen as heart-wrenching there as it is here because their definitions of rape culture are very different there than they are here. They've had a 9-year-old all the way to 50s, which is very unsafe for the mother and the baby. 32 weeks is their viability, so that's about when they are able to live a good, healthy life moving forward. Here, it's about 26. So pregnancy lasts about 40 weeks. Like I said, 26 weeks usually is viable here, 32 there. And their smallest baby to survive was about 1.5 pounds. So if you can imagine, that's, if anybody wears like a size 14 or 15 shoe, that's about how much that would weigh, so.
So I'm kind of going to go off of what Maddie talked about a little bit. So we visited that hospital, which was oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. You can't say it now either. Yeah, that. Anyway, so yeah, the hospital Maddie was talking about, the women there could only go if it was their firstborn child or if they're having complications. But a lot of it was ruled by the men. And then this is another hospital we went to. So on the right picture, there were people camping out in tents in order to get the health care they needed. If they had family members in there that were receiving health care, they were not allowed to go into the hospitals because of overpopulation. So it would be so hard to have a loved one in the hospital but not being able to visit them. So a lot of them would camp out. They had buckets of food to last them like a week or so because, like Maddie said, it would take 7 hours, multiple hours to go down from villages. and a lot of them probably didn't have the resources or the finances to go back and forth. So they would bring their whole family, and it's a very family-dominant culture. So siblings, cousins, grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, the whole 9 yards would be there to support them living outside. So before we went, Dr. Tyrell, who's our director of nursing, expressed that they have a need for healthcare and oral hygiene supplies. So for BC Cans, we got together and we collected toothbrushes, toothpaste, and some floss in order to take down there for them to donate. We collected over 180 toothbrushes. We packed a full check-in size bag of just toothbrushes and toothpaste. So that's what the picture on the left is. I mean, I'm a firm believer that pictures show a lot more than words. So you can tell by that little girl that 50-cent toothbrush for her just made her day. Like, that made her week, that made her life because of that smile on her face. So that just shows that they are very, very limited to the things that we take for granted there, because, I mean, we get toothbrushes for free when you go to your 6-month checkup at your dentist. And the toothbrushes were gone in like 5 minutes, so the people crowded around us. You can go to the next one. So the people were like crowding around us for the toothbrushes, trying to take them out of our hands just because they wanted them. The picture on the right kind of shows that, like, not just children, but the adults and everything. And that skirt that woman in the yellow is wearing, that's part of the skirts that the village people wore. It's like made out of sheep or wool. It's very thick fur. And because the oral hygiene is very important to them, but they have limited resources, the people on the left are actually their dental hygiene students. So those are students that are practicing and doing procedures on clients. Those clients would go in and the students would perform on them. So if you went to your dentist, you would have a student performing on you, or if you went to our nursing department, us nursing students would be practicing on you, to put that into perspective. And they all wore Mickey Mouse scrubs, which was adorable for me. And then we have a clinic that we also visited. It was a community health clinic, and that clinic participated in vaccines. And vaccines are very important, but that's a lecture for another time. Because of the lack of resources, all those people would receive 6 or 7 vaccines at once, just because it would take hours for them to get there. So they did cluster care in providing those vaccines. The clinic also provided woman checks and testicular exams as well. And then one of the blockages that we ran into was, again, the traditional versus modern medicine, the accessibility and the resources that they had, because it's a very male-dominant culture. You can go to the next one. I don't know what's on the next one. So back to the hospital on the right, it kind of shows you what they would do. That lady on the bottom right-hand corner, she was selling food outside because the men weren't allowed to go in there to visit their wives who were pregnant. So they would sell food outside. There was a bunch of people walking on the streets trying to get you to buy things that they were selling. So.
And then we added some stuff that we did that was fun, because a lot of it was sad and hard to witness and just very different from what we experienced, so we wanted to include some of the fun we had. We saw lots of cool food, like this avocado that was the size of my head. We met this monkey when we went on our boat ride through the canyon. His name is Poncho. We played cards because there was a point for like 72 hours that we didn't have any kind of cell service. So the roads in Mexico, they have speed bumps like every 400 meters. And our driver would speed up and then brake as hard as they could right before we got to the bump. So it was really hard to sleep, but we were really exhausted. So Maddie tied herself to the seat back so she would not fly forward. We saw some Dia de los Muertos dancers. We went to a restaurant called Tequila Zoo, so you can imagine how fun that was. There's cows crossing the road all the time. Our professors didn't want to get out of the van to eat raw sugar cane with us. And then this is another picture of that spring that we weren't allowed to drink from, but we really wanted to. So yeah, that's just a snippet of our trip, and we had a lot of fun.
So you can tell a lot of it was not nursing related. A lot of it was culture. A lot of the teaching that we have here at Bethel is how to integrate the patient's culture into their care. We want to be as holistic as possible, and so being able to experience a different culture, to learn from them, to learn maybe different cultural differences that you hear a lot about. Eye contact or all of those in the way that you dress. Learning those things, I think, will make us much better nurses. So thank you.
Thank you. We may have some time for questions at the end, but we're going to send it ahead to the next group of students who did internships in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the stage.
All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to present, we all spent a substantial amount of time doing internships and taking classes in Washington, D.C., Jen last summer and Akia and I last fall. Yeah, it's still in the United States of America, but it is a very different culture than North Newton, Kansas. So we felt like it was an almost study abroad. I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of kind of how we got there. We were there with the Washington Community Scholar Center program, which is a program through Eastern Mennonite University, another Mennonite college. It's in Harrisonburg, Virginia. They have a satellite program in Washington, D.C. that accepts about 15 students, or up to 15 students from Mennonite colleges each semester, and they have a summer term as well. They have like a flat program fee during the summer, but if you go during semester like Akia and I did, yeah, they have kind of an agreement with Bethel where you're paying the same tuition and room and board that you'd be paying here at Bethel. And you still receive all your credits, and you still receive all your scholarships, which is really great. It makes it pretty affordable, and you get to live in a really cool place. The program participants are expected to take 3 different classes that are specific to the program, and everybody gets placed in an internship where you work for 20 hours a week. So it's really great if you have an internship requirement for your major. This is a really great opportunity. And I think we're going to each take a little bit of time to talk about our specific internships. Jen?
So I am Jen, and I'm an elementary education major. So I interned at St. Anthony Catholic School, and they have a summer camp for 3-year-olds through 2nd graders. And I helped in the kindergarten through 2nd grade classroom. So I'll just take you through a typical day that I had. I would get to work around 7:30. The kids started showing up around 8, and until then I would get activities ready for the day and things like that. And on Mondays and Wednesdays in the morning, we walked to the local rec center, and the kids got to play on the splash parks. That's the top middle picture. It was lots of fun. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we played games in the school gym, and that involved like those fun scooters that we played with when we were younger, and jump ropes and basketballs and things like that. And then in the afternoons, I would plan a craft and an activity for the kids. And then each Friday, because we're in DC, we got to go on field trips. And so we got to go to places like the Air and Space Museum and the Natural History Museum and the Baltimore Children's Museum. I had an amazing experience there, and because of that, I'll be doing my student teaching in DC next fall. So I'm excited for that.
Okay, I'm Akia, if you don't know who I am by now. I also went to DC, and I went this past fall. I worked with an organization called Horton's Kids. So DC is split up into a bunch of different wards. There's 8 wards. There's 8 wards. Oh yeah, because they're in Ward 8. There's 8 different wards. Wards 7 and 8 are typically seen as like the most displaced populations, just because like they're a lot of like lack of access to resources. Most of those areas are in like essentially food deserts, very disconnected from metro systems. So you might have to walk like 45, 50 minutes to make it to a metro station. Whereas where we were living, it took us 10 minutes to walk to a metro station. Almost anywhere else in the city, it seemed like you could get to a metro or a bus stop pretty quickly. And there was like grocery stores on every other block. So these kids, they live down in Ward 8, which is past the Anacostia River. And they lived in Anacostia. So I essentially, it's kind of like an after-school program, but more in a holistic approach. So we also like worked with families. We had a food pantry at our like center. So we had a center that was down in actually like the project that they lived in. It was just on the bottom floor of one of the apartment buildings. And then we also had an office that was like smack dab in the middle of like DC, like in all the like hustle and bustle of the city. So I would start out my days like at that office, doing any kind of like data, like entry stuff that I needed to do, putting in everybody's report cards and whatnot. Stuff like that. And then around like 2:30, 3 p.m., I would go down to the center with the kids. Down there where those two girls are sticking their tongues out, that's like, we're at the center there. I would get home and find all kinds of pictures in my phone. Honestly, like I think, like I work at Prairie View and I know I work well with adults. And before this, I was dead scared because I was like, listen, like I grew up like I was like in like a, I guess like black community, but like I'm not in DC, like in Kansas. So I was like, these kids are gonna like tear me apart. I don't know if I work well with kids, but they were awesome. Like I love them. The way that they talk is the way that some of them talk, because they like to put on a show for you, is hilarious. The girl with her tongue out, she had a lot to say, a lot of like, and that's on period poo. Like, and that was every conversation I had with her. There was nothing like serious that happened in it, because she couldn't stop messing around. But they were like the best. I like learned so much from these kids. So I would like get the opportunity to schedule like whatever programs we were gonna do with them that night. So we would always do like homework help as soon as we got down there, because this is like, it was an entirely like African American population, these kids. And so they were typically, most of them had like an hour commute to their schools. They're finding like that they had a lot less time than most students to get their homework done, because the schools in their neighborhoods weren't like adequate. So we provided homework help. I would sit in there and tutor. All of them thought that I was a math whiz. I was not. They would think on the spot that I would know how to solve like this quadratic equation. And I'm like, no, can you give it to me and give me like 3 days and let me learn it? And then after that, we would hold all different kinds of programs. So I was with the older youth, so I would hold like a middle school program, and then the older kids would also still be working on homework. And then later we would have a high school program. And during those programs, we could do anything from like talk about identity to kids had questions about like sex and relationships, and questions that weren't going to be answered very well in the communities that they were growing up in. So we created those programs for them. I was also specifically in charge of community service. So getting these kids to come to community service was a trip. I was shocked with some of the kids that actually showed up, because the kids that I thought were going to be reliable weren't. I would literally have like 10 kids on my roster to show up, and like 3 kids would show up. So, but we were at like a food pantry on that like far right picture, not a food bank, and it's like the Capital Area Food Bank. It's like insanely huge. It's like 3 stadiums or something. Yeah, it's like 3 stadiums. So it was insane. We also did tons of outings. So we paired our kids with mentors and tutors, because the more support that those kids could have, the better. And so all these ice skating pictures, those are one of our outings that we did with our mentors and tutors. We did pizza parties, all kinds of stuff. We took them to, like, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we took them to different locations to do tutoring with these like different kind of tutors. Most of the tutors work for like some government like agency, which is really cool, because they're meeting people that are like super professional. So we would take them to like the Department of Transportation. They sure as heck did act up there. We had kids get kicked out, but they but we could always build those bridges back because we have such a long-standing like tradition with those departments. So that was great, and like our kids are great kids. They just had like difficult circumstances and needed a little more like help along the way. Yeah, and then I threw in a couple of my extra pictures right here. So I met mom and dad, Barack Obama and Michelle. So you know, I was pretty excited. My face there shows that I'm pretty excited. If you could see it better. Sarah and I went to a lot of museums, also a ton of churches. Oh, saw so many churches. It was, yeah, I became religious all in one semester. I feel like, no. Also met some like famous people on the weekends when we went to like go out. Yeah, Brixton. So met Leak Jack. Didn't think, like, I was like, oh my God, is that Leak Jack? And all my friends are like, who's Leak Jack? And I was like, oh. So then I was like, let me look up a picture and see if this is Leak Jack. Also, Blake Griffin, met him, but Sarah and I were way too cool to try to go get in that picture, apparently. Also had great bonding experiences with Sarah. Sarah and I were roommates sophomore year, and it was great to be her roommate again. We also realized we never take pictures together, so we were like, oh, we're roommates again, so let's take pictures together. And then one of the hardest things for me, I thought going away was like, I've been in like this relationship with David, with Cochran for, like 2 years. And I was like, that's going to be trash. I'm bad with distance. But it was great. Like, so if you're worried about going away on a study abroad trip, it'll probably make it better. He even sent me like something, like everybody in the house, all the girls were like, wow, my boyfriend sucks now. Because he sent me like a teddy bear while I was there, so that was nice. It was nice to like still have a lot of connections to home. I had family come and like visit me. David came and visited me, and so it was great to like get to show people around the city after I felt like I knew it really well. Yeah.
All right. So I'm a social work major, and my internship was at Congregation Action Network. We do a lot of community organizing, harnessing the power that faith communities have to support immigrants within the community. So kind of a day-to-day for me looked very different depending on the day. Sometimes it was a lot of emails and making phone calls, and sometimes it was strategic planning around events. And sometimes I got to go to rallies and protests and call that my work for the day, which I thought was super cool. I am really interested in kind of the broader macro level social work policies, and this internship gave me a really great experience in seeing how macro level policies can affect individuals, particularly within the work we were doing, policy around immigration and customs enforcement. Whether you support what they do or not, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, has been wildly underregulated since its creation in 2003, which led to this situation where you have, in the past, before the Trump administration, immigrants, whether they were documented or not, could go in about once a year and check in with their local ICE office. And they could say, hey, I'm working, hey, I haven't gotten into any trouble, I'm working on getting my documentation, and they would be like, great, we'll see you next year, come check back in. They weren't a priority for deportation. But now everyone is a priority for deportation. And so these people who have built their lives here we didn't work with anyone who had been here under 8 to 10 years. So people who had built their lives here and didn't really have many connections from the country of origin were at risk for deportation. And so we would try to find ways to figure out how to keep them in the DC area. A lot of times that included trying to get as many people to come out to their ICE check-ins, once again, because ICE does not have many rules and regulations. they can kind of just arbitrarily decide who gets detained and deported and who doesn't. And so if we can show that this person has a lot of community support, that their church, that their community is really behind them, and that we're going to be a real thorn in their side if ICE decides to detain and deport them, they usually don't get detained and deported. There were also a lot of times where we got to show out. The top right picture over there was at the Supreme Court when they were hearing testimony for the decision about DACA that happened. And also just, there were a lot of anti-immigrant rallies and protests that would go on in DC, and we would counter protest as well, which was super fun. Yeah, I think it was a really great experience, and like I said, it really helped me see the macro level affecting the individuals. And it was also really great because this was a small organization. It was me and one other paid organizer. I mean, I wasn't paid, but there was me and one paid organizer. And so it started out where I was kind of learning the ropes and just shadowing what he did. But after about 3 to 4 weeks, we just like split the work. So I got real life experience, and I feel a lot more prepared. I got to count this as my senior social work internship and get credit for that as well. So that was really cool.
So like Sarah said earlier, when you go to DC, there's a class that you have to take. When I was there, the class was a multicultural history of DC. This was led by Kim Schmidt. And what was your class?
Our class?
We had a combination of 2 different courses, which were urban landscape, as well as people, place, and community.
Yeah, so they're different when they're in the summer and the fall and the spring, depending on who's directing it. But in my class, the multicultural history of DC, we compared neighborhoods and demographics of the city, as well as discussed the like who and the city was founded by and how it kind of became the capital of our nation. And we got to go on a lot of walking tours of the city, like during class time. So it was very, very interesting to be able to move away from the normal classroom setting and be out in the city as we were learning too.
And so we took the classes that she just mentioned, they were all in one. So that was like one whole class together, which was 4 hours on a Thursday. So a 4-hour-long class. And then we also had like a seminar class that was led by Kim. That class was like thinking about like your vocation and service, and combining those two. It was interesting. There wasn't like much. I feel like we talked to tons of people from all different kinds of like walks of life and vocations, and I feel like that was the really pivotal part of that, was getting to meet all these professionals around DC and seeing like, oh, this is like the major that they graduated with 20 years ago, but this is what they've been doing since then, and it may or may not still be related to what they like thought they wanted to do. And then we talked a lot about race and space in our other classes. So just like who has rights to this area or this space. So DC like has always been called like the chocolate city, because like after the Great Migration, DC was like 80%, like 90% like black. And since then, it's more like 40%. It's gone down tremendously, and it's called like the Cappuccino City now instead. And so it's just recognizing its history and like, oh, these are places that like originally like were inhabited by like African Americans, but now they've been pushed out because of like gentrification, rising housing costs, and we talked a lot about stuff like that. It was really interesting. It made us think a lot, like whenever we would go out. We had a usual spot on like U Street, and U Street is like historically known for its like black, like famous or like influential black like individuals that grew up there or lived there at some point. And so we had a lot of conversations about like, is it okay for us to go to like this bar if that bar was like it honestly shouldn't be on this corner because something else used to exist here, but that got pushed out. So we talked a lot about that. It was really interesting. The courses were great. The other one was taught by Ryan Good, and he's awesome. He has like what is it? It's like social planning or urban planning. Like that was one of the degree, like his master's degree, and it's just like such a fascinating like topic, especially in an area like DC.
Okay, so we also had lots of fun. I'll just go through the top row of pictures. We went to the DC Pride Parade, one of the first weekends we were there. That was really fun with our group, and we ate a lot of good food. The next picture is Ethiopian food. We had a lot of, we went there multiple times. The next picture is the 4th of July, and a couple of housemates and we went to see the fireworks at the mall. It was very cool to see the fireworks like by the Washington Monument. And then, like Akia said, we took lots of trips to the National Portrait Gallery.
Yeah, and then from the bottom pictures, on the bottom left, that's from one of the Smithsonian Art Museums. That was contemporary art. We thought it looked real cool. The bottom middle picture, DC has a lot better nightlife than Newton, so we took advantage of that sometimes. That was fun. And then DC is also just, it's the center of politics for the entire country and in some ways for the entire world. So there was always some sort of protest going on. There was always some sort of action going on. Like there were always things to do. So that was one of the pictures that I took at like a climate justice walkout. And just kind of in conclusion, as you can probably tell, we all had a fantastic experience. And this is something that is pretty accessible to a lot of Bethel students due to Bethel's partnership with Eastern Mennonite and this program. So if any of y'all are interested or want more information, come up and chat with us afterwards or shoot us an email, and we'd be happy to give you more information or connect you with our professors out there, because we want everybody to be able to have the same kind of experience we had. Thanks.
We have time for at least one question. If anybody's got a question they want to ask either one of these groups. You also know where you can find your peers. I encourage you to talk to them about these trips afterward and these experiences. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.